The colonel hung up. Dead silence for 10 seconds, then our CEO's voice cut through the conference room like a blade. What the hell just happened? I stared at the speakerphone, knowing exactly what had happened, but wishing I'd been wrong. Stephanie Walsh, our new VP of Technology, had just blown the biggest contract opportunity of my career, a $120 million Department of Defense cybersecurity deal that I'd spent 6 months building from the ground up. There might have been some miscommunication about our encryption protocols, Stephanie said, trying to sound professional while sweat beaded on her forehead. Miscommunication? I couldn't keep the edge out of my voice. Colonel Foster asked specifically about AES 384 compliance. What did you tell her? I explained our industry-standard 256-bit encryption capabilities. The room went quiet again. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for an explanation that would somehow make this less catastrophic than it sounded. I'm James Sullivan, 52 years old, and I've been securing government networks since my Navy days. 12 years at Pinnacle Systems in Dallas, and I've never seen a contract presentation go sideways this badly, not when I'm running point on the technical side. But I wasn't running point today. That privilege had been handed to Stephanie, who'd been with the company for exactly 3 weeks. Let me back up and explain how we got here, because this disaster didn't happen overnight. 6 months ago, when our IT security director took a better offer in Austin, the board passed a temporary resolution giving me full signatory authority for government cybersecurity contracts. Made sense. I had the clearance, the relationships, and 20 years of experience keeping classified networks secure. That same week, I started building the proposal for this DoD modernization contract. Not just any government deal, but a complete infrastructure overhaul for military cybersecurity systems. The kind of project that comes along once in a career and sets you up for early retirement if you don't screw it up. For 6 months, I lived and breathed this proposal. Every protocol specification, every compliance requirement, every redundancy system had my fingerprints on it. I knew the Pentagon security people better than some of my own family members. Then Stephanie Walsh arrived like a corporate hurricane. She'd come from some fintech startup that got acquired before it could collapse, bringing with her an MBA from Stanford and absolutely zero understanding of government contracting. All buzzwords and strategic vision with the technical depth of a puddle. Within her first week, she'd reorganized my team structure, moved budget lines around like Monopoly money, and started having daily coffee meetings with our CEO. By week 2, my access to client briefings had been streamlined. My input on technical specifications became optional. Classic power play. Isolate the guy who knows too much, then hand his work to someone who looks better in PowerPoint presentations. The moment that sealed my fate happened in the elevator on day 3 of the Stephanie era. I was heading up to brief the executive team on Pentagon security requirements when she stepped in beside me. "I need you to stay in your lane, James," she said, not even looking at me, just staring at the floor numbers like she was announcing the weather. My lane? The technical details. Leave the relationship management to people who understand the bigger picture. That's when I knew this wasn't about improving efficiency or strategic alignment. This was about a 35-year-old corporate climber who felt threatened by a guy who'd been securing networks since before she could spell encryption. But I'm Navy trained. You don't abandon your post just because some new officer shows up with different ideas about how to run the ship. So I kept my mouth shut, filed my reports, and waited to see how badly she'd mess things up. I didn't have to wait long. Last Monday, Stephanie scheduled a preliminary relationship-building call with Colonel Diana Foster, our primary DoD contact. No technical documentation, no security protocols, just a 15-slide PowerPoint about innovative cybersecurity solutions and paradigm-shifting approaches. I wasn't invited to the call, but Tony Ricci from our analyst team kept me informed. Tony's a good kid, 28 years old. Sharp as hell with network security, but still green enough to be impressed by military protocol. He'd been tracking the Pentagon requirements for months, helping me build the technical foundation. 10 minutes after Stephanie's call ended, Tony was at my desk looking like he'd witnessed a car wreck. "What did she tell them about our encryption standards?" he asked. "I wasn't on the call. What happened?" "She said we provide military-grade 256-bit encryption across all platforms. Standard industry practice," she called it. My stomach dropped. Any idiot can Google military-grade encryption and find 256-bit protocols. But this wasn't any government contract. The DoD specifically required AES 384 with quantum-resistant algorithms for classified data streams. The difference between 256 and 384 isn't just technical specifications. It's the difference between getting the contract and getting blacklisted from future bids. Colonel Foster didn't ask any follow-up questions. She did. Asked about our quantum-resistant capabilities and compliance with the new DoD standards. And Stephanie said she'd have to get back to her on the technical details. That's when I knew we were finished. You don't tell a Pentagon security officer that you'll get back to them on basic encryption requirements. That's like telling a Navy admiral you'll need to Google the difference between port and starboard. The DoD went silent for 3 days. No returned calls, no email responses. Colonel Foster, who usually responded to my messages within hours, marked herself as unavailable indefinitely. Our proposal status got updated to pending technical review. Government speak for "we're not impressed." Which brings us back to this morning's emergency call, where Colonel Foster politely but firmly informed us that our technical specifications didn't meet DoD requirements and they'd be moving forward with other vendors. $120 million. Gone. Because someone who'd never secured anything more complex than a coffee shop Wi-Fi network thought she could wing it with Pentagon cybersecurity officers. The silence in the conference room stretched until our CEO finally spoke. "James, can you fix this? James, can you fix this?" That question hung in the air like smoke after a firefight. Everyone in the room was looking at me. The CEO, the CFO, even Stephanie, though she was trying to look anywhere else. "Sir, I can try, but I'll need full technical briefing authority and direct access to Colonel Foster." "What about chain of command?" Stephanie interjected. "I'm the VP of Technology. All DoD communications should flow through my office." The CEO's expression could have frozen water. "Stephanie, your office just cost us $120 million. I think we can skip the organizational chart for now." I pulled out my phone. "Colonel Foster, this is James Sullivan from Pinnacle Systems. I understand there was some confusion in this morning's briefing." "Sullivan." Her voice was crisp, military efficient. "Are you calling to explain why your VP doesn't understand basic encryption protocols?" "Ma'am, I'm calling to request a do-over. Military to military." There was a pause. In the background, I could hear the familiar sounds of a Pentagon office. Secure phones ringing, the low hum of classified computers. "You have 20 minutes to convince me this isn't a waste of my time." "Roger that, ma'am." For the next 20 minutes, I walked Colonel Foster through our actual capabilities. Not PowerPoint slides or corporate vision statements, but real technical specifications. AES 384 encryption with quantum-resistant algorithms, classified data stream isolation, network intrusion detection that could spot a Russian hacker from 3 time zones away. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "This is what we needed to hear this morning, Sullivan." "Yes, ma'am. I apologize for the miscommunication. Can you be here Thursday for a full technical review? No PowerPoint presentations, no corporate executives, just you and your technical documentation." "Absolutely, ma'am." "And Sullivan, will you be the primary technical contact throughout the contract implementation?" I looked across the table at Stephanie, who was staring at her phone like it contained the secrets of the universe. "That's my intention, Colonel." "Good. We'll see you Thursday." After I hung up, the CEO leaned back in his chair. "James, what do you need from us?" "Complete autonomy on the technical presentation. No interference, no oversight, no last-minute changes to the proposal. Done." He turned to Stephanie. "You'll provide James with whatever support he needs. Full access to all materials." Stephanie nodded, but I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. This wasn't over. That afternoon, I spent 4 hours rebuilding our technical presentation from scratch. Tom Rodriguez from our contracts team helped me review the legal language, making sure every specification aligned with DoD requirements. "This is solid work, James," Tom said, flipping through the documentation. "Pentagon quality. It better be. This is our last shot." "What's the story with Walsh? Why'd she think she could handle a DoD briefing without technical backup?" I shrugged. "Some people think military contracts are just regular business deals with bigger budgets." "Yeah, well, those people usually don't last long in government contracting." Tom was right about that. But I had a feeling Stephanie wasn't going to disappear quietly. Wednesday evening, I got a call from my son Danny. He's 25, works as a cybersecurity analyst in Austin, smart kid who inherited my love for network security and my ex-wife's ability to see through corporate bullshit. "Dad, Heard through the grapevine that Pinnacle almost lost a major Pentagon deal. Word travels fast in this industry. Is it true your new VP tried to present military encryption specs without understanding the difference between AES 256 and AES 384? I laughed. Where'd you hear that? Dad, the cybersecurity community isn't that big. People talk, especially when someone screws up a DoD presentation that badly. That hit me harder than I expected. I'd been thinking about this situation in terms of office politics and personal pride, but Danny's comment reminded me that my reputation extended beyond Pinnacle Systems. 20 years of government contracting, and now people were talking about how my company had fumbled a Pentagon deal. I'm fixing it tomorrow. Good, because some of us are actually proud of what you've accomplished. After Danny hung up, I sat in my home office staring at the wall. My DD-214 was framed there, right next to my first government contracting certificate. 23 years since I'd left the Navy. But some things never change. You don't let your unit down, you don't abandon your mission, and you sure as hell don't let some corporate climber destroy 2 decades of professional relationships. Thursday morning, I drove to the Pentagon feeling more confident than I had in weeks. This was my element. Technical briefings with military professionals who understood the difference between marketing speak and actual capability. The meeting lasted 3 hours. Colonel Foster's security team asked every question I'd hoped they would. Network architecture, intrusion detection protocols, classified data handling procedures, quantum-resistant encryption implementation. Questions that required real answers, not corporate vision statements. When it was over, Colonel Foster shook my hand. This is what we needed to see from the beginning, Sullivan. Professional, thorough, and technically sound. Thank you, ma'am. One more question. Your company's internal structure, will you have full authority over technical implementation? Now that was interesting. She wasn't just asking about my role, she was asking about interference from people like Stephanie. Ma'am, I have board-authorized signatory authority for DoD security contracts, full technical oversight. She nodded. We'll have preliminary approval by end of business Friday. Friday afternoon, the approval came through. Full contract authorization, 5-year term, $120 million value. But buried in the contract language was something Tom and I had discussed, a protection clause that covered both sides. Section 12.4 stated that if the named technical signatory was removed, reassigned, or terminated within 90 days of contract execution, the DoD reserved the right to conduct a full security review and assess breach penalties. Any financial liability resulting from such a review would fall to the approving executive authority responsible for the personnel change. Translation: if they tried to cut me loose now, the company executives would be personally liable for any contract penalties, not the company insurance, not the shareholders, them personally, out of their own bank accounts. The contract was executed Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, Stephanie was asking uncomfortable questions. Tuesday afternoon, Stephanie was in the CEO's office asking uncomfortable questions. Tony Ricci stopped by my desk with that look he gets when he's picked up interesting intelligence from the executive floor. Your new best friend has been busy, he said, dropping his voice to cubicle conversation level. Oh, spent an hour with legal this morning asking about your signatory authority, wants to understand the proper chain of command for DoD contracts going forward. I leaned back in my chair. She's welcome to review the board resolution. It's all documented. Also asked HR about reporting structures and whether your Pentagon access needs executive oversight. That made me smile. Stephanie was smart enough to recognize she'd been outmaneuvered, but not smart enough to understand how badly she'd miscalculated. Anything else? She scheduled a meeting with the CEO for tomorrow morning. Subject line: Strategic Oversight of Government Contracting. Sounds like she's planning a comeback tour. Tony grinned. Should be interesting. Oh, and someone forwarded Colonel Foster's commendation email to the company-wide distribution list. You're kind of famous around here now. The commendation was nice, official Pentagon letterhead praising Pinnacle Systems for exceptional technical expertise and professional military standard protocol adherence. But the real satisfaction was knowing that every attempt to marginalize me had backfired spectacularly. Wednesday morning brought the inevitable elevator encounter. Stephanie stepped in just as the doors were closing, and for a moment we stood there in the kind of corporate silence that makes you appreciate working from home. James, I think there might have been some miscommunication about your role in the DoD contract. No miscommunication on my end. I'd like to discuss a more collaborative approach moving forward. Team leadership, shared responsibilities. I kept my eyes on the floor numbers. I'm focused on contract execution now. Pentagon timeline is pretty demanding. We should probably clarify the reporting structure. Make sure everyone understands their role in future government interactions. The elevator stopped at the 12th floor. As the doors opened, I looked at her for the first time during the conversation. Stephanie, I've been securing government networks since before you graduated from Stanford. My role is pretty clear. She didn't get off on 12, just stood there as the doors closed, probably planning her next move. That afternoon, I got a call from Tom Rodriguez. James, you need to see something. Can you come down to contracts? Tom's office was in the basement, surrounded by filing cabinets full of legal documents and government compliance manuals. He had the DoD contract spread across his desk, highlighting sections with a yellow marker. Look at section 12.4, he said, the liability clause. I read it again, even though I'd helped write it. What about it? I just got a call from corporate legal. They're asking questions about the language, specifically about executive liability for personnel changes. They're reading the fine print now? James, I don't think they understood what this clause meant when they approved the contract. That was interesting. The protection clause had been buried in 47 pages of legal language written in the kind of bureaucratic prose that makes most executives' eyes glaze over. But now that Stephanie was asking questions about my authority, someone had apparently decided to read the actual contract terms. What kind of questions? Hypothetical scenarios. What happens if key personnel are reassigned? Whether the DoD can really trigger security reviews for internal personnel decisions. How much financial exposure the company might face. And what did you tell them? Tom smiled. I told them it's standard government contract language, designed to protect both parties. Which is true. But I didn't mention that this particular version is more specific than usual about who bears financial responsibility if the review turns up problems. We both understood what that meant. Most government contracts spread liability across the entire company. This one targeted executives who made personnel decisions that jeopardized contract compliance. Tom, hypothetically, if they tried to remove me from the DoD project in the next 90 days, what would happen? Hypothetically, the Pentagon could demand a full security review of our technical capabilities. If that review found any gaps between what we promised and what we can deliver, the financial penalties would fall on whoever approved the personnel change. Personal liability? Personal liability. Thursday morning brought the emergency board meeting I'd been expecting. I wasn't invited, but Tony kept me informed through the corporate intelligence network that exists in every office. Assistants, security guards, and analysts who pay attention to executive calendar changes. Conference room sealed off, Tony reported. Blinds drawn, phones silenced. Outside counsel is there. Stephanie? Sitting at the far end of the table looking like she's prepping for a court-martial. I spent the afternoon working on Pentagon implementation schedules, but my mind kept drifting to that conference room. Somewhere upstairs, a group of executives was discovering that their new VP had created a situation where firing me could cost them millions of dollars in personal liability. Around 4 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Danny. Dad, LinkedIn shows some interesting executive moves at Pinnacle. Everything okay? I smiled. My son was keeping track of our company's corporate drama through professional networking sites. Everything's fine. Just some organizational adjustments. Heard Stephanie Walsh got moved to special projects. That was fast. Dad, in cybersecurity, reputation travels at light speed. Word is she's basically been benched. Friday morning, I got an email from the CEO's office. Subject line, Senior Cybersecurity Consultant Position, Discussion Request. The message was short and respectful. They were offering me a promotion to senior consultant, significant salary increase, and primary oversight on all government contracts. Remote work option, quarterly Pentagon briefings, and the kind of autonomy I should have had from the beginning. I read it twice, then walked over to the window. Dallas spread out below me. Highways, office buildings, the kind of urban landscape that looks the same whether you're winning or losing. But today felt different. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Dad? Danny's voice was excited. I just heard from a buddy at Lockheed. They're talking about Pinnacle's Pentagon contract at industry conferences. People are impressed. It's a good contract. Dad, it's more than that. People are saying you personally saved a $120 million deal after it went sideways. That kind of reputation opens doors. After Danny hung up, I typed my response to the CEO's offer. I'm interested. Let's discuss terms. No drama, no victory speeches, just professional acknowledgement that they finally understood who was actually keeping their government contracts secure. But the best part was knowing that I hadn't just saved my job. I'd become the person they couldn't afford to lose. The negotiation meeting happened the following Tuesday in the CEO's office. Not the conference room where Stephanie had tried to throw me under the bus, but the corner office with the view of downtown Dallas and the kind of leather chairs that cost more than most people's cars. James, let's talk terms, the CEO said, sliding a folder across his desk. Senior cybersecurity consultant, $185,000 base salary plus performance bonuses tied to contract success. I opened the folder and scanned the offer. Remote work option, quarterly Pentagon briefings, full autonomy over technical implementations. Everything I'd wanted for 12 years, finally being offered because they had no choice. The liability clause, I said. Section 12.4. We need to discuss that. The CEO's expression tightened. Our legal team has some concerns about the language. I'm sure they do. James, hypothetically, if we needed to make organizational changes to the cybersecurity department, hypothetically, those changes would trigger a DoD security review. Any gaps between our promised capabilities and actual delivery would result in financial penalties for whoever approved the personnel changes. Personal financial penalties. That's correct. He leaned back in his chair, and for a moment I could see him doing the math. $120 million contract, potential penalty clauses, personal liability exposure. The kind of arithmetic that keeps executives awake at night. So you're essentially irreplaceable for the next 90 days. I'm essential to contract compliance for the next 90 days. After that, we can revisit the situation. And if we don't revisit the situation, if we just make this arrangement permanent, I smiled. Then you get 5 years of flawless Pentagon contract execution from someone who actually understands government cybersecurity requirements. He signed the paperwork that afternoon. Stephanie's exit was handled with corporate discretion. No dramatic firing, no public confrontation. Just a quiet reassignment to strategic innovation projects. The kind of position companies create when they need someone to disappear without making headlines. Her LinkedIn profile got updated within 24 hours. Leading transformative technology initiatives in emerging markets. Corporate speak for exile. Tony Ricci stopped by my desk that Friday with the kind of grin that meant good news. Guess who just got promoted to senior analyst? Congratulations, you earned it. James, I learned more about government contracting in the last month than I did in 2 years of college cybersecurity courses. What's the most important lesson? Technical competence beats corporate politics every time. Eventually. That evening, I called Danny to share the news about my promotion. Dad, that's incredible. Senior consultant with Pentagon oversight? It's a good opportunity. Dad, it's more than that. You just proved that experience and expertise still matter in corporate America. That's inspiring for those of us starting our careers. After Danny hung up, I sat in my home office looking at the framed DD-214 on the wall. 23 years since I'd left the Navy, but some principles never change. You don't abandon your post, you don't let incompetence put the mission at risk, and you never back down when someone tries to push you out of your lane, because sometimes your lane is exactly where the country needs you to be. Monday morning brought my first week as senior consultant. I drove to the office early before the corporate executives arrived and spent an hour reviewing Pentagon implementation schedules in the quiet of my upgraded office. Around 9 a.m., my phone buzzed with a secure line call. Sullivan, this is Colonel Foster. Good morning, ma'am. I wanted to personally thank you for the professional manner in which you've handled this contract. It's refreshing to work with someone who understands military protocol. Thank you, ma'am. That means a lot. James, we're beginning preliminary discussions for Phase 2 of the Cybersecurity Modernization Program. $200 million over 7 years. Are you interested in leading the technical proposal? I looked out my office window at downtown Dallas, thinking about retirement planning, my son's career in cybersecurity, and the satisfaction of doing work that actually mattered. Absolutely, ma'am. Excellent. We'll need someone with your level of expertise for the advanced encryption protocols we're planning. This isn't the kind of project we can trust to corporate executives who learned cybersecurity from PowerPoint presentations. After Colonel Foster hung up, I opened my calendar and started planning the next phase of my career. Not just surviving corporate politics, but building something bigger. A reputation that extended beyond one company, one contract, one confrontation with an incompetent executive. 3 months later, Stephanie Walsh left Pinnacle Systems for a strategic consulting opportunity with a startup in Austin. Her farewell email was professionally cordial, wishing everyone success in their future endeavors. I didn't respond to the email. Didn't need to. That afternoon, Tony stopped by my office with industry news. "James, you see the cybersecurity conference agenda for next month? What about it? You're listed as a keynote speaker. Government contracting, technical excellence in federal cybersecurity." I laughed. How did that happen? Word gets around. People want to hear from the guy who saved a $120 million Pentagon deal and turned it into a career-defining opportunity. 6 months after that elevator conversation where Stephanie told me to stay in my lane, I was setting the standards for government cybersecurity contracting, teaching other professionals how to navigate Pentagon requirements, how to build authentic relationships with military personnel, and how to protect their expertise from corporate executives who think everything can be managed with better PowerPoint slides. My son Danny called that evening with news of his own promotion to lead cybersecurity analyst. "Dad, I used your Pentagon contract as a case study in my promotion interview, showed how technical expertise and military protocol adherence can differentiate a company in government contracting. How'd that work out?" They offered me a 20% salary increase and asked if I knew any other Navy veterans interested in cybersecurity consulting. After Danny hung up, I walked out to my backyard and looked up at the Texas sky. Clear night, stars visible despite the city lights. The kind of evening that makes you appreciate the long road that brought you to where you are. I'd stayed in my lane, all right. Built it wider, made it stronger, and turned it into the road everyone else wanted to follow. Some lessons are worth teaching twice.